Welcome to the Lovecars On The Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars On The Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. Red Bull were breaking records in Hungary. There was nothing new as Newgarden, that's easy for you to say, dominates Indycar yet again on the oval. In Iowa, WRC was a bit of a procession in Estonia. Dirty Den does it again with NASCAR.
Dirty Den did it again.
Yeah, British Superbikes, really cool at Brands Hatch. And there was an explosive World Rallycross cross at Lydden Hill.
Literally.
It was literally. We'll come on to that at the end. Let's start off with a little bit of news. I've got a little bit of a gripe. I think you have as well with the whole Hungarian track. It wasn't the most exciting. There's loads of excitement. Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3, Porsche Supercup, loads of great racing, great qualifying, but the track itself was a bit of a letdown.
It wasn't great racing, great processions, spectacular processions. But, I mean, we'll come to the support races later. But, the sport races, they were all won from pole position, the main races. So in Zach O'Sullivan, great win for Britain in F3. Harry King, great win for British drivers in Porsche Supercup. Jack Doohan, first win of the year. Good to see Doohan back. But they all won from the pole. And the reverse grid races, which was the worst condemnation, the 12th best Formula 3 driver in qualifying, Gabriel Mini, won from pole position. Although in the F2, it was the second, the 9th fastest and second on the grid, Dennis Hamlin. I know this happens at other circuits, but this whole Hungary thing, I think we've just suffered it for so long. And we I don't know why we keep suffering, because now they've just signed this contract now. Hungary's going to have another 10 years. And they also, I love this, they say they're going to invest in the infrastructure. All that means is posher garages and equipment with the teams, more paddock club for the people who want to go and spend £8,000 a ticket for a weekend to drink champagne, have smoked salmon, and occasionally look out the door and watch a car go down, all racing car, and then back for more champagne, but nothing about changing the track. And we all know it's an awful track for racing. I mean,
people enjoy going to watch it at Hungary, though. So Joe Priday and a load of the boys from Devon, they went down bangers to Budapest. They bought a load of old bangers and drove them down there. And it wasn't just the trip down there. They chose Hungary because apparently it's a really good place to go and watch it, and it's very close to the centre.
What else? And
there's no racing. There's
really cheap beer in Budapest.
Yeah.
But you're taking it back to Formula One becoming an event. Hello, Las Vegas, Miami, Monaco, and the racing for the true racing fan is just almost ignored now. Are appealing many race fans for less DJs booming music on the grids and more tracks where people can race. And it's just so frustrating. And we are just being ignored. And like I said, this Hungary track's going to stay the same. Nobody seems to care that you can't overtake. Turns 1 to 6 are actually pretty good. There's overtaking at turn 1 and 2, and there's a really fast corner at 4 and big loop at 5.
I didn't see any overtaking on 6.
Occasionally, that's chicane. After 5, occasionally you could overtake into the chicane at 6. But then from 6 to 14, the next 8 corners, it's just this trail. And if you see a Formula 3 and Formula 2 races, you can't actually work out which bit of the 8-turn trail they're on until they get to that last corner and then pick up the DRS. The other track that's just got another big extension is Qatar. Qatar originally was supposed to build another track. There is a city track, but I don't think it's going to be used for F1. And that's an awful circuit. Again, we're going to increase big investment in the infrastructure. Yeah, more paddock club suites, more fancy stuff for the teams, more sponsor pleasing. But Qatar is just one huge long straight with a great big grandstand where all the fans that do go just sit in the grandstand. And the rest, all the corners go out into the desert, where no spectators, a mishmash of never-ending corners, and no motor racing.
Yeah, it was really Hungary was very disappointing. It was Perez was catching up. A couple of people were catching up in the race, and they said, "Okay, well that's his chance done for this lap," and that was turn 1. It's like, okay, he's got to wait for the next lap. But
so it's very sad, but I'm afraid this is the way Formula is going, and we're all going to have to accept it, even though we're fans that if you don't like it, Tiff, switch off. Well, I've been following Formula One racing for 60 years. It's sort of something I'm quite interested in, have a big passion for. And I can't help but shout my frustration when nobody seems to care about the old-fashioned true motor racing spectator anymore.
Well, like we
All
said,
right.
and like we said
I've had a
many
go.
times, maybe
I'll get off the soapbox.
the true racers will go to IndyCar, but we'll come on to IndyCar because there's certainly plenty of overtaking there. So Formula One, let's start with the qualifying. Lewis Hamilton, he pulled it out of the bag, didn't he? He wasn't fastest in any sector, any of the 3 sectors, but he was fastest overall.
3,000ths of a second, but it was a Red Bull weekend again, and we have to congratulate. It's amazing they've broken this record of McLaren with 12 consecutive wins. With Max taking the last 7 of them. They've broken this record McLaren had in 1988 when they won 15 of the 16 races that year, including 12 consecutive races. But I was looking back to the records. If Red Bull hadn't fallen apart at Brazil last year and George Russell had that amazing win, they would have won the last 22 races.
Wow!
So they've had 11. Well, they've had 10, missed one, and then won 12. So that's they would have won 22 on the trot. It is an amazing dominance. So we have to praise them. We have to praise Newey and his engineering team. We have to praise the Red Bull sponsors, the way they go about it. And you have to praise Max Verstappen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Tiff, they're in the news again. There's a little bit of controversy about the spend cap because Helmut Marko, he's at every single Grand Prix. He's always on the pit wall. But they're saying, hang on, his salary isn't included in the spend cap. And I know it's lots of speculation. I don't really know the details behind it. And they're saying the same with Adrian Newey. Maybe his costs aren't there, but you don't know. You've just got to say hats off. Whatever they're doing, they're completely dominating, other than Perez, who had a great drive but only qualified ninth again.
He
would be in serious trouble if he was in any other car. He would be out by now, and I'm amazed he's not out. But
whereas poor old De Vries is out. But the trouble is, none of us actually have this, this book. And this book for spending limits must be the biggest Bible. And to go through every page to understand how many hours in the wind tunnel, how many hours of CGI computers they allowed. I don't know how many employees and salaries.
That's a good point you said about computers, because nowadays, when you design a plane or when you build a plane, you don't put a plane in a wind tunnel. You just everything's done on computers. So I guess they must be restricted to how much time they have with computer generation.
But the conspiracy boys, I mean, they were coming up with someone's discovered that the Red Bull's DRS flap is illegal. I mean, they'll be going ever since Abu Dhabi. The conspiracy boys will be trying to pick on Red Bull.
Abu Dhabi wasn't Red Bull's fault. That was a FIA fault. It wasn't Red
Bull.
Although
Red Bull did pressure. They pressured.
That's what you do.
That's what you do.
As a team manager, that's what you do. That's your job. Try and get.
I wouldn't get too worried about how much advantage they got out of slightly overspending that year. I mean, as long as from now on, that enough doesn't happen again. That was the first year they'd been done, and so I think we have to back off a bit. They've made an amazing. I mean, they could win. They could win the next 22 races.
Don't say that. Please don't
until
say
the
that.
Regulations change in 2020. How many more races now? It's 2023. We've got 24, 25. So that's 48 races plus another 6 left. They could win another 53 on the trot.
Can you imagine that? Breaking records everywhere. Because it's just because of that dominance, that would be very depressing. And of course,
reliability. Reliability now. I liken Verstappen and Red Bull to my hero Jim Clark and Lotus. I mean, Jim Clark and Lotus were way out in front of many races. I mean, Jim Clark would win by 4 minutes. Incredible gaps. But of course, there was always tension in the air because you never knew if the car was going to finish the race. So even with 1 lap to go, you'd be all listed a gearbox or a misfire or a drive shaft going. So you never had a dominant series of victories because cars always broke down. And now they don't anymore, and it's just incredible.
The reliability is incredible.
Well done to Red Bull. Mercedes had a glimmer of hope, but then they mucked up George. And that quali, what's all that about? They've got to get some regulation. That just looks stupid. When you see Grand Prix cars overtaking each other at 10 miles an hour, queuing up at the end of the qualifying
They have to do something about that.
I don't know what's the rule, you're right.
There has to be a minimum speed on the track, not a minimum lap time, because then you can just manipulate that. No, because you can manipulate that. You can slow right down, then speed right up for the rest of it.
It just looks, I mean, there will be a big shunt because someone will come round still on a hot lap, and there'll be 4 people trying to do a slow bicycle race towards the last corner. And they've got that. I don't know what they're going to do, but they really do need to work on that.
Who was it? Was one of the ex-drivers, so that narrows it down a little bit. But maybe it wasn't Brundle. maybe anyway, one of the ex-drivers on Sky Sports, brilliant, because they said, in your day would this happen? They said, absolutely not. This gentleman's agreement, what a load of rubbish. You've got to just look after yourself. Number one only.
Well, I think Lando said that, didn't he? Or no, someone else said, because Lando was one of the ones that jumped the queue.
Right.
But we're talking about Lando. McLaren, though, so Mercedes had a glimmer of improvement, but again, George came back through. Well, he got up to 6th, didn't he? So, or even better, where did George get back to? So
of course. So as you just said, George didn't qualify. He didn't get through Q1, and that was because they're doing this new hards in Q1, mediums in Q2, and softs in Q3, which seems to be okay.
I quite like that. Yeah. George got 6th, didn't he? So he had a really good recovery. Sergio got to 3rd. He did have a better recovery than previously. But it's probably McLaren's weekend for the star of the show. Apart from Red Bull, we all knew would be the star of the show. And that was pretty impressive. What did Lando miss pole position by 0.085 of a second? He was 0.2 quicker than Piastri, who's very impressive, 4th. But Crofty got all upset, didn't he? He got really prickly when they pitted Lando first. Well, it should have been Oscar because he then undercut Oscar to come out ahead of Oscar.
It doesn't work that way, Crofty. I'm sorry.
Crofty, Lando was the fastest qualifier. Lando then tried to get around the outside of Max at turn 1, made a bold attempt to actually lead. So Oscar nipped by him on the inside, going down to turn 3. So Oscar got past simply because Lando had a go. But Lando is the de facto team boss. Team leader, and he's a better experienced driver, as it proved in the race, to get the result to the end. So, but Crofty was really trying to make. You could tell he kept on bringing. Well, surely, that's not right. That's not right. It should be. Made such a thing about it. Because in the end, Oscar dropped to 5th, didn't he? In the end, when he ended up?
Shame. He just had a little bit of bad luck as well. He said the last 2 races could have got a podium at Silverstone, should have got a podium at Silverstone, and could have done a little bit better at Hungary as well.
I think his time's time management. Time management. I think he couldn't manage the time. And again, I tweeted about it. I mean, when we were on board, it was a bit with Oscar. When the team were telling him, he would say, "What do I do now? What's the plan, mate?" And they sort of said, "Well, just sit there and conserve your tyres." But he was driving around the circuit with not a single twitch. The steering turned into a corner and out, turned into and out. And you could hear the throttle. I mean, he wasn't opening the throttle. He was virtually straight because they can't put the power through the rear wheels. There's so much torque in those engines. So you could hear the throttle coming in incredibly. And he just thought, he's just driving to the shops. I mean, you really did. There was absolutely no visual guidance that anything was going on that meant any talent was needed to drive that Grand Prix.
That's a ridiculous thing to say. There's a bucket
the
full
speed.
of talent.
It's just the speed. It's the entry speed.
And the heat inside there and the physical.
That's not the point. It has to look hard, like IndyCar does without power steering, which I keep on going on about. If there was no power steering, the thing would be kicking. Well, it might not kick much because the tracks are so smooth nowadays, but anyway, a great
Oscar is going to have his time. He's going to have his time. He is by far the best rookie out there, not just in terms of success, because that's a lot of down to the car as well. But he's really flying. So good. Long may that continue with Oscar.
Alfa Romeo had a bit of a surprise out of the blue, qualified 5th and 7th, but with Zhao ahead of Bottas. And it's weird how some manufacturers' cars suddenly pop up for one weekend and then disappear again, because they disappear very quickly after Zhao's. Probably his anti-stall device went off on the grid, so he dropped to the back and he got so pissed off that he then punted Ricciardo into Ocon, who went into Gasly, wiped out the Alpine team at turn 1, and also put Zhao at the back, and then Bottas, who was useless on the first few laps, as he always is, dropped backwards, and if he's still employed in 2 years' time, I probably will give up watching Formula 1. Sorry, Valtteri, you've had your time. Move on, get out.
Yeah, but I said that about Daniel Ricciardo, and fair play to him, even with that little shunt on turn 1. No, you've got to say he did very well.
You'd expect him to
Liam Lawson would have come in and done that. Liam Lawson.
Yeah, he would, easy.
I'm a massive Liam Lawson
Piastri's done it. Piastri's done it.
Not on that first
Verstappen
not
did
one race. One race after not
De
being
Vries
in F1.
did it. De Vries did it.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
if the car's good and the driver's good. Ferrari, another embarrassing flipper now. Where they finished up, 7th and 8th? More ranting on the radio to the engineers. Leclerc's been saying today it's because the radio apparently misses out every second or third word. They've got to get the radio sorted, because that's why he gets angry, because he can only hear half the words and so forth. But I mean, Sainz on the hard tyre, charging at the start, made up a couple of places, comes up behind his teammate. you've got to immediately say, Leclerc, move over. Sainz goes past. He's on a different strategy. Immediately. You can't wait 2 or 3 laps to say, well, can you buy on your own? You've got to make these orders. And why these teams allow their drivers to be such prima donnas and not, it's just ridiculous. He wasn't pushed past.
Yeah.
Aston Martin still down in the dumps. Where he ended up, 9th and 10th. So not very good for Aston Martin. Which I think Fernando's now complaining they changed the tyre construction slightly. Apparently, that's their excuse that they get caught out by a new tyre build. But it's entertaining to watch. But it was no.
And as you said, both Alpines out for the 2nd race in a row. God, that's got to hurt. That's horrible. I'm not the biggest fan of Alpine, maybe, but it's horrible because you got the whole team and the families, and it's not just the drivers. But so bad luck for Alpine. And in terms of big celebrations, I think the highlight was Lando smashing Max's.
I turned off by that. I don't tend to watch much beyond the end of races these days. Well, someone I read it was a £45,000 trophy on the headlines. I know that was on the auto. That £45,000 trophy, I think it says. Crikey. Sure, it was. Or maybe it was 4,500. No, I think it was £45,000 trophy. Motorsport.
I quite like that they just laugh about it. I mean, what else?
$45,000. $45,000, that vase. Was it a Ming vase or something? Or was it made of, I don't know what, lithium? What's expensive product? Lithium, probably. So everyone's happy, I suppose. Smiles on the podium as usual, champagne flying. But, it's great to see McLaren. That's what's so good at the moment in Formula One. The best thing about Formula One is the McLaren, the Papia going well, and the new driver, Piastri, getting a chance, proving that youth can be competitive.
What are your thoughts on Zach Brown?
I've been a fan of his. I met him and did a test with him when I nearly drove him with his Audi that he raced in GT3. And I was very impressed with the man. I mean, it seems to get a lot of criticism. I don't bother to read below the headlines. If you've got something to bring up, then
not at all. No, I thought he's very endearing. Actually, I think he's really warmed. He knows he's a bit of a star now. He knows because of Drive to Survive and stuff. He knows he's a bit of a star, and he gets asked for autographs and all that sort of stuff. But he said, they said, how are you going to keep Lando? He said, well, we got to give him a good car. He said, if we give him a good car, he's going to stay. It's as simple as that. So, I think he's becoming very endearing, I got to say.
He came over to Britain, wanted to be a racing driver, and he slept on Richard Dean's floor. I mean, he had no money. So this is a bloke that over the last 10 years or 20 years, has come from just yet another aspiring young racing driver to be an amazing businessman. And
why can't you do that? Look after me, give me some money. I'll be a sidekick or something.
Like Roger Penske. Roger Penske's got so many businesses going on. Amazing. I just so admire people that come up through and make these things happen in their lives. So, admiration. He may upset a few people, might think he's done something wrong, but I've got nothing against him.
I thought he was very endearing. Give me him over Christian Horner any day of the week.
But he had no joy in IndyCar. No joy in IndyCar for... I think they had won second place, but I was just dominated by the Penske boys.
If you didn't see IndyCar, I don't know much about it. It was a tiny little oval. How far was the oval? But it was
7/8 mark. It's not my favourite. The trouble is, because you're virtually cornering non-stop, the car setup is absolutely crucial. And if you can survive in qualifying in the first few laps, when you've all got new tyres, the badly handling cars are held rigid with the tyre grip. As soon as you get tyre degradation, the guys that haven't got good handling are suddenly they're just being driven by as if they're standing still. Drivers desperate for a yellow flag so they get new tyres, or desperate to get to the next fuel stop. At the end of the race, the Aussie was saying, I'm going to need tyres, I'm about to crash any second. And they're just scary. But if you've got a good handling car, which Penske's had, the Penske's were 3 out of the top 5 cars in both races. The winner both times was Joseph Newgarden, who's now made it 5 oval wins in concession this year. So he's obviously an oval specialist.
Yeah,
he's won that aisle race 6 times. He's won five wins in a row, and the 6 times at Iowa. So he's a real oval specialist, a real Iowa specialist. But it's a 22nd lap. It's not my thing because you do see cars going so slow. Well.
halfway through, I'm thinking, I can't watch this. I can't keep watching this. I watched it from the start to about 140 laps. I can't watch him. It was just, vroom, vroom, vroom. It's hypnotic. It's vroom, vroom, vroom.
But getting through the traffic is that's the trick as well. You catch traffic every corner. There's traffic once you lead. I mean, he lapped everyone except the top five. Well, top four. Only 5 cars finished on the lead lap in both races. So, it's not my favourite oval. It's quite spectacular early on.
Didn't have the best of race.
Don't know where he finished up. No more notes about that. Indy NXT, they had the race then.
Go on, let's do Indy NXT next.
It's Jamie Chadwick, so she braved her very first oval, and full mark. I mean, she only qualified 13th out of the 16 cars, but it's a scary oval to be her first ever oval. She didn't make any mistakes. She finished 2 laps down in 10th place out of the 16, and she was in an Andretti car.
Super
We've also got the very quick British drivers. We've vital. Louis Foster is also an Andretti car. And again, I talk about setup being so crucial, but because Louis could only qualify 6th and finish 7th, he was 1 lap down, Jamie 2 laps down. So I just admire her for doing it. I mean, it's really out of her zone, and it's she's averaging 160 miles an hour. Even in the NXT, the qualifying speed is averaging 160 miles an hour with those walls inches away.
That's respect, big respect on lock like driver, that virtually the whole way as well. Yeah. On lock.
75 laps. Dane Christian Rasmussen took the win and took the championship lead back again. He's the one earlier on this season. So that wasn't televised this time around. They had the Indycar on Sky F1, but they've dropped the NXT race this weekend, so I didn't see the race.
You were very quick going across the pond to IndyCar, and we still got a couple of things to wrap up in Hungary. One was, you finished with Indy now? Can we move on?
Yeah.
So one thing that we didn't mention that I have to mention, for those of you that watched Porsche Supercup, the Mobile Supercup, track limits, there weren't any. It was.
I don't think they have them in Porsche. They don't employ them.
Why?
I don't think they seem to be. Well, I almost think it's right. NASCAR don't when they go to sometimes.
But you say they don't, but they kept saying, "Oh, black and white flag for such and such." You're thinking, how can they give the black and white flag for one guy and not?
I mean, that's chicane. The chicane, they would go 4 wheels inside the line. They just, and that's why those S-bends that designers love to look pretty on the map, they are always the worst for track limits. Because any S-bend, it means you want to chop across the middle apex. So unless you're going to put tyre stacks or concrete walls, you're gonna. I know. I do agree. I don't know who does the Porsche. They must have maybe have six excursions before you get the warning. They must allow more excursions.
Fine, no problem. I got no problem with no track limits.
I said the same about that. We said the same about Red Bull Ring.
Yeah,
all the leading. I said, well, if all the leaders do it, then maybe none of them get a bad mark. It's only if one person does it and the others don't. But yes,
okay,
track limits.
Right, track limits. And the 2 other things I wanted to mention were Formula 3. There's only 2 races left for Formula 3 now, and just to say that Zach O'Sullivan, our British boy, it's very tight. He can technically win, but the Italian Bortolio, how does my pronunciation?
Yes, but don't they all have to go to Abu Dhabi for that one final round? Or is that just F2?
I think that's just F2. So there's only 2. The Spa and Monza are the only 2 left for Formula 3, and then Formula
Spa
2
and Monza, yeah.
And they've got 4 races left for Formula 2, but Vesti is really pulling it out against Porsche. And they've got 4 races left, actually. They've got Spa, Zandvoort, Monza, and then at the end of the year, crazy 2 months.
No, right.
To a nearly 3-month sabbatical before they go to Abu Dhabi, which is crazy. They shouldn't be doing that.
Zach's come on strong there, but I think it might be too late to win the F3 title. But our boy Behrman didn't have a very good week at F2. He was always in the top 10, battling and diving and ducking and weaving, but not the best results for him this weekend.
Good. Sorry, that's me done with Hungary. Let's go to Estonia.
Back to America. We'll go back to America first and finish off the NASCARs. Okay. It's in America. We went to America.
Tell us all about Dirty Den.
Moving due east, right, over to New York. This amazing Pocono, the tricky triangle, as it's called. 2.5 miles, 3 huge long straights, very different track, almost flat, only 3 corners. The banking's only from 6 degrees to about 14. Massively wide straights where they go 5 to 7 wide when they have the restarts. It was great racing. It is one of the tracks that always provides great racing. When they were going slowly through the tunnel turn, the track surface is horrendous. The bumps they dive over. Anyway, it was a great race. half because Kyle Larson, the number 5, which some families support a lot, was always in the mix. He was part of the stream. He was leading early on, but then he got pushed. One of the restarts, they always try to push to help each other, but of course, occasionally a push can push you into a spin. So he was pushed into a spin from the front row at a restart with 40 cars coming behind you. It was broadside in front of the whole pack, but managed to go up to the wall, not hit the wall, save the car, get back, put on 4 new tires, started at the back of the field, and came all the way through over all the various strategies and tire stops, got back into the lead, and then led quite confidently with about 15 laps to go. It all calmed down. He was a safe distance ahead of, I think, was it Denny Hamlin was second and Martin Truex Jr. third. It was quite all spread out.
Was it a good race?
Larson was going to win. Larson was cruising to yet another win. But then there was another shunt behind them all. They had to have a pace car, then a restart, which Larson kept going on. But there was another shunt, another restart. And on this next restart, dangerous Dan, dirty Dan, Den. Denny Hamlin. He did this last year to the number 1 car. What's his name? Ross Chastain. So he got the restart and going out of turn 1. He got inside Larson, and then he just moved him up on towards the exit of the corner, put him in the grey, as they call it, where all the tyre rubble is, made Larson bounce off the wall, damaged his car. And then the yellows came out because there were people crashing behind anyway. And going past the start finish in front of the grandstands, Larson drew alongside with the pace car, came over, hit Denny Hamlin in the side, pushed Hamlin into the wall, bit of rubbing, bit of V signs. And it damaged Larson's car, and he was out now when he hobbled home somewhere, and Hamlin went on to win. And if people complain about the booing of Max or booing of Lewis, the whole tens of thousands of people were booing Hamlin when he got out of the car. He didn't care. He won the race. He said, I didn't touch anybody. That's when Larson was trying not to be hit by him. So Larson was just being shoved up. Loads of track to the left, that Denny could have used, but he just knew what he was doing. He did it the year before to get rid of Chastain, and he did it again to get rid of Larson, which put a very sour taste into some fans of the 5 and all the fans there. Plus, another bit of attraction, we had a helmet throw. Occasionally you get pushing and shoving after race, maybe obviously a bit of fisticuffs, which obviously I don't endorse, but it does happen in NASCAR. But also there's the helmet throw, traditionally done when a driver's particularly aggrieved, and you wait by the side of the track until the pace car come around slowly, and you hurl your helmet at your grievance. And this was done by Austin Dillon. And he was completely in the wrong. I mean, he'd listened to the commentators. It was Dale Earnhardt Jr. He knows. But Tyler Reddick had there was a 3 wide coming to turn 1, and Reddick was down low, and Austin Dillon was in the middle. And Reddick just held his line, and Dillon came down on him. So he caught his own rear end around the front of Reddick's car, decided it was all Reddick's fault for a late dive when he'd been there all the time. So he had a helmet throw. It's always good stuff.
So did he hit the windscreen?
He missed, but then to get it. Well, Reddick actually saw him coming, I think, and swerved back up the hill a bit, getting away from him.
Surely the cars behind have got a good chance of hitting that.
It came rolling back down the bank, and we saw it come tumbling down.
What will happen to him? Because if that was FIA, you imagine that. Oh, my goodness
FIA,
gracious.
he'll be banned for 3 years. He'll get a fine for it. NASCAR give him a fine.
But you say about the fisticuffs. I'm amazed there aren't more fisticuffs in NASCAR, because it is quite argy-bargy. It does remind me of Talladega Nights all the time with Will Ferrell.
I chose to jump the World Rally Championship because that was 2 great entertaining races in America. I'm not my favourite oval.
Entertainment meter for NASCAR?
NASCAR was a 9 out of 10. It was a really great race. It was. There was overtaking going all the time. There was tyre wear. There was spins. There were crashes. There was helmet throwing. There was dirty tricks.
What do you give NASCAR? And what do you give IndyCar? And what do you give Formula One?
The IndyCar's about 7.
And
Formula One 5 out of 10. Standard 5 out of 10. Nothing happened particularly, did it?
No.
Why was it just an average 5 out of 10?
Qualifying was exciting, I think.
Well, yes, but we keep on talking about it. So we keep on being more entertained by qualifying. And how sad is that? The best part of a Grand Prix weekend is now qualifying. Yeah. And in qualifying, all you're looking at is the clock. I mean, you can't actually see that Hamilton was particularly quicker than Max or particularly quicker than Lando. They were covered by 10th of a second. So all you're doing, the only excitement is waiting for the clock to click up. It's not visual excitement, it's just watching a clock.
Yeah, but it's bloody closer. A couple of thousands are bloody closer than 33 seconds or whatever it was that Max won by. That's where the excitement is, because we just know who's going to win. It's like, here we go again. Okay, so let's go to World Rally in Estonia. That's
another sad story. You see, all the FIA championships, Formula One, it's in its little 20-car clique, was World Rally Championship. It's just dwindling into the dust. Only 8 cars went to Estonia, 3 Hyundais, 3 Toyotas and 2 Fords. 1 Ford, the home hero, gone. Home hero, Tanak. The home Estonian Tanak had to change the engine on his Ford before the rally started, which gave him a 5-minute penalty. So he was out of the rally, Tanak. So the home hero was never going to win. So he kept on trying to win stages. He won a lot of stages early on in true anger. Then in the Toyota squad, we didn't have the occasional Sebastian Ogier. And Ogier, the old hero, is the only person that can get anywhere near Kalle Rovanperä. So Rally Championship, they've got their own Max Verstappen, because Rovanperä is just an amazing young talent. Poor Elfyn Evans, his teammate, he was 4th. The Japanese boy they put in Katsuta was 7th.
It's not the same. Max is an incredible talent, phenomenal talent.
Well, so is Kalle.
Yeah, but he's got this incredible car. Max has got the car. Tanak has got a car, but it's not that much in front in rallying as it is.
Well, the Toyotas do dominate. They are pretty much. I mean, the Hyundai boys hang on there. I mean, Thierry Neuville came second, ahead of his Escapacalapi, his teammate. But I mean, it's just, I don't know what to do with rally. And again, it's high tech. See, again, I would argue they're too fast. They love putting these things on YouTube clips. So they got a clip of Kalle Rovanperä. So he comes over a crest, flat out, lands flat out, disappears through a right-hand kick, flat out. I mean, amazing skill and bravery. But it's flashed by in a second. You don't see any car control going on because it's all happening so fast and the cars are so high-tech. And I mean, a lot of people would say we should put them all in WRC2 cars, which is like a production rally car. But, then the high-tech people go mental at me. It must be the premium, must be the most high-tech cars. Well, I'm sorry, the most high-tech cars aren't entertaining. During WRC2, though, Gus Greenspan, I don't know what happened, our British hero, he was battling for the honours. He was running 3rd with 1 stage to go and then disappeared. And I've been on the website, I've been on Gus Greensmith's Twitter, which has every stage results, 19, 20, 21.
Drivers,
is he stuck in the woods somewhere?
Drivers, if you have a good or bad weekend, please let us know on your
Where's
Twitter.
Gus? Where is Gus? I don't know. He might be still parked out there somewhere.
If you need some driver's excuses, just come to me. I've got a whole bag full of them. But just tell us where you finished for the weekend, good or bad or indifferent. So we know. Your fans want to know.
Nobody cares about rallying anymore. It's very sad.
We do.
Anyway, Rovanperä is going to be champion. Verstappen's going to be champion. But I have no idea who's going to be champion in NASCAR.
We're talking about this year or next year? Because we already know Verstappen's going to be champion next year as well. Right, let's go to British Superbikes because they were pretty spectacular at Brands Hatch.
Always spectacular Brands Hatch. Wonderful track. Amazing to watch these bikers. Once again, the beer monster Ducatis were on form, but didn't win the first race. Bit of a shock. They won the second 2 races. Always love the beer winning. So race 1 was won the Yamaha of Ryan Vickers. Second place was Danny Kent on a Honda. And third place was Christian Iden on a Ducati. No beer on the podium of race 1. In fact, as a bit of a contrast, it helps their sponsors, but Christian's Ducati is sponsored by Oxford Products. Doesn't quite have the same ring as Beer Monster, does it? Oxford Products. But good on you, Oxford Products.
So I know Oxford Instruments, they're based
near Oxford
me.
Products.
I'm going to have to Google them now because
Go on. Beer men came back in races 2 and 3. Tommy Bridewell won them both. Glenn Ernham, his teammate, was 4th, and then he was 2nd. So the last race, the beer got themselves sorted by the end. But that's just watching those boys around Brands Hatch. If you're ever at Brands Hatch for Super, go out to the country, go look around the Fast Bend, Westfield. And that's just
Oxford
Great.
Products. They do products.
Well, that's a surprise.
They make life on bikes better. That's what Oxford Products do, and they're based.
And do they make the products in Oxford by any chance? Do you think they make them in Oxford?
Oxfordshire, Whitney in Oxfordshire since 1978, and we would be delighted to have a Caterham race series with Oxford Products as our primary sponsor. So be delighted and the sponsor of the podcast.
What am I getting out of this? I'm the one. I am the one, right? That brought Oxford Products to this podcast. You had no idea until I told you.
I know all about them now.
You can't say steal them.
I love Oxford Products. They've got Twitter. It's not Twitter anymore. It's called X. Don't forget.
What's that man? That man's a complete lunatic.
They do products for motorcycles and push bikes. So in case you're interested, that's Oxford
so
Products.
They're probably not
hopefully our new sponsor.
Your Caterhams, then, quite obviously, are they?
No, because lots of people have bikes and push bikes.
Is there a Caterham motorcycle that you can sponsor?
Bikes, push bikes.
Meanwhile, down the road at Linden Hill, there was an explosive weekend for the World Rallycross. I mean, frightening. You can't really laugh about it. I mean, Sebastian Loeb's Special One team of their Lancia Delta electric rallycross, because it's all electric that made the top formula now. The batteries burst into flames on Friday morning, I think, sometimes, and up went the two Lancia Delta cars, the transporter, the awning. I mean, I had some sarky comments on Twitter saying, "Oh, so we've never had a fire with petrol, then, have we?" The electric people fighting back. To which I could quickly answer, "Well, yes, but we actually know how we can put out petrol fires. We're quite good at putting out petrol fires.
So Tiff
but you can't put out these battery things, and they just had to let it burn to the ground."
So Tiff and I had a driver. We went to the ball at Goodwood with Renault. Thank you, Renault. And we had a driver who was a fireman, and he was saying exactly this. He was saying that they ruined a fire engine because it had lithium batteries, something in there, or had lithium batteries, and they have no way. They just literally have to let it burn itself out, which is so you can't fight it. Which is
we have said, because I've driven them. As you know, we've driven from the Lovecars on the Road to the TV series. We drove
and on YouTube,
electric rallycross,
and on YouTube,
that is.
Yep.
So we supported the idea that electric power for rallycross. It's a perfect place to have it because it's short, sharp action, spectacular. Got a lot of power for just the 4-lap races. So it does work for rallycross, but they cancelled the whole event now because these batteries must be incredibly highly charged, lots of power in them. So until they've worked out why that battery, it was being charged at the time, apparently, why it caught fire, they've cancelled the event, and it's a worrying time for the future. And this is what happens. So
they're saying that one of the key reasons was the battery manufacturer, which is Chrysler in this instance. I've never heard of them. They didn't give them a suitable answer. They haven't given them any further information.
Reason, no.
Appropriate level of insurance in the system pending their investigations.
Not good news for electric rally fans.
And it works for rallycross. It definitely does.
Yeah.
But it's funny. What you just said about the electric car guys. It's you get a point across, and they're very, very super defensive. And it shouldn't be about being defensive. It's about getting the facts across, really, and an opinion. Facts, opinions.
It's an element of the future of the whole motoring world. Electric batteries is where we're all going, and if they are going to occasionally still burst into flames, we've got to know how to deal with it. Because they talked about having like a skip full of water, aren't they? So they're saying to get rid of them in London, if one bursts into flames, you take the skip over and crane and drop the whole flipping thing into the skip.
Well, the whole thing just needs a bit of thought in the electric car world, just for now. But let's not go down that route. That's about it, I think, Tiff.
Yes, next week we're back in Formula One. I will be in Belgium representing Lovecars on the Grid. I'm going to be there live with our Motor Passion guests, being very nice to them as I watch from the hairpin seats. And so I should be watching the F1, F2 and F3. And I think Porsche Supercup bound to be there as well. So hopefully get some more British wins. World Superbikes, the Razgatlioglu Bautista show goes to the Autodromo Most in Hungary. Great track, good to watch actually. NASCAR boys at a little tight Richmond Oval. Formula One Academy are racing. I think it's their last race now, the last set of 3 races in Europe before they go over for their one Grand Prix support race at the end of the year.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares. I hate to say, but nobody cares.
Abby Pulling get a win just to get her thing going.
And Tiff, I'm not being facetious there, but nobody cares. It's when do you ever see it on anything, on Twitter, on Motorsport UK, on anything? It's nobody cares. It's just such a shame because W Series we all embraced that and wanted it to do well. Any more?
Back in Britain, if you're not going for a continental trip or you're not in the Belgian Grand Prix, which is very popular, I know with British fans, great trip to go over on, if not in the luxury motor passion, even if you're just camping and going. It's a great trip. We have the choice. You can either head north to Croft for the BTCCCC, which is always pretty spectacular, or you can stay in London for Formula E, the grand deciding championship round, the last 2 rounds, Saturday and Sunday, where Jake Dennis, we should, for Britain, claim the title. But Formula E, I don't know whether they've increased it this year. It can only take 2,700 people. So you can't, me saying, rush down to London. I don't know what tickets are still available. If you do manage to get tickets, I'm not sure quite what you get to see. But that's about it. So
we were invited to that, by the way, with Cupra, but you were away and I was due to be away. But instead, I'm going to one of the highlights of motorsport throughout the world this weekend coming. I'm going to Thruxton to watch Caterham's whizzing around the fastest racetrack.
Oh, immense. Well, I didn't know. We should have said that earlier, because if you're up north, go to Croft. If you're down south, go to Thruxton.
There you go.
What else? What is it supported? You know what's on?
It's a full. It's got. I think it's the first time this year. No, maybe not. But they've got Academy all the way through to 420. I don't know.
But apart from catering,
I don't know. There'll be something. There'll be something cool. That maybe BMWs or Minis or something. There'll be always something good. So Thruxton, Saturday, Sunday as well. And don't forget Thruxton. One of my mates, he does with these like fast rides, and you can go skiddy all the way around. He's not bad at it as well. It's pretty good. About to do his
8,000th passenger ride. 8,000th.
Who's going to be your 8,000th passenger?
Well, I don't know. It's going to happen probably on the first 2 days of the August.
So it's not going to be planned. This is going to be however it goes in your schedule.
Yeah, we're counting. I know how many. It's counting up. And there'll be a suddenly surprise when I shall emerge with the 8,000th passenger ride.
Do they win a prize?
Yes. They get a free drive, so a repeat of what they've already done, or they can give that to someone else, plus a Pirelli goodie package, a Hendy Performance goodie package, and a Thruxton goodie package. So,
But genuinely, it is a brilliant thing to do. If you haven't done it, do it. Then you get to board Tiff for 10 minutes. Or he gets
I was doing it in the rain last weekend. Oh, my God. I've got opposite lock elbow. I was sideways so often. I was just surviving. Oh, dear.
Thanks, everybody, for joining. We really appreciate all your support.
Comment. Tell other people. Subscribe. For goodness sake, subscribe. Cheers.
See you.